Yeah, okay. Well, we'll crack on. First of all, welcome to Daniel for this our sixth now pre-season series session where we're looking at mental well-being through cricket through the eyes of a different player each time. And it's great to have Daniel here, who is currently in quarantine following his time out in Abu Dhabi for the T10 there. So fingers crossed that all goes smoothly for the rest of the time. The first thing we're going to look at then, Daniel, is mental strategies to bat long, thinking about your red ball here, but I suppose also in white ball where you might have a long time at the crease. Just interested to hear in anything you've got to share with regards to that.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, like you say, that tends to happen more in red ball, but no, for me, it's just about taking each ball one after another, and not looking too far ahead. Obviously, you have the game plan and where you want to be at the end of the day, but I think it's just really important to just stick to the processes, and just make sure you give every ball 100% attention. And for me, that's what's helped when I have done well. Just to stay in the moment and not think too far ahead. And also between deliveries, I tend to have my routines and just step away, and just make sure I come out of that zone, because obviously it's especially if you bat for a long time, it's a lot of time under pressure or sort of at a high intensity mentally. So yeah, as much as possible, just chilling between balls, or making sure that I step out of that zone, and so when I go back in it, I'm doubly focused and I'm not tiring myself out where I don't need to.
Okay. In that space between balls or between overs, you say you like to have a bit of a break and chill out. Will you, between overs, will you discuss what the game plan is, the situation, or will you try and take a little bit of time to get away from the context?
I definitely think both. So it will be, especially like myself, someone who likes to plan and likes to strategize things. I definitely will speak to the other batsmen about certain things we've noticed or our game plans. But as long as I've got what I've had to say across and I've listened to my colleague, I think, I'm not going to talk for the sake of it. After that, I'll come into my own zone. And even that could be speaking to the umpire, just having a conversation with him, or just practicing my technique in the background. But for me, that's still switching off, because I'm not in the current mind space of when I'm ready to face the ball. So just making sure that whatever it takes, and I don't mean sort of thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner later that day, but just not being stuck in that zone that I need to be fresh for when I face up for the next delivery.
Yeah. Now, is this something which is fairly common across the different formats that you play, or is there any variance depending on the particulars of the game?
I think it just naturally, it is different, just because in T20, I'm sure it's an individual thing. I know a lot of batsmen are very different to me in how they prepare, but I can only talk from my point of view. But I sometimes find 2020 cricket, or the shorter forms, the game sort of takes you along with it. Like in T20, you're always going to be a bit tired if you're batting well, because you're swinging as hard as you can, or you're running hard between the wickets, as you always should do. But there's obviously less dot balls. Normally the crowd's getting into it. So a lot of the time, it's harder to step back in that moment, but at the same time, it's a lot shorter. So I tend to go with the flow a bit more in those formats. The aim of the game is to score as quickly as possible, and you know what your plans are. But in 4-day cricket, for me, it's definitely, there can be a bit drier periods in the game. So it's just making sure you're not, for me personally, I'm not too high, I'm not too low, in terms of my mentality, and making sure I'm just level-headed and just everything's in sync, ready for the next ball. Because especially in 4-day cricket, you can be batting fine, and one loss of concentration and you're out, and you've done the hard work, you've got yourself to 20, you've been out there for an hour or so. So it's just so important in all forms of cricket, but especially in the longer form, because the aim is to be out there as long as possible for a batsman.
Yeah. Now, my last thing I want to ask on this kind of theme is what you might do if there is a set form for you to follow when you reach an interval in a 4-day game. So if you're out there still batting at lunch or at tea, how far do you allow yourself to relax, or is there always something which is keeping you connected to the game?
Again, it's so different for everyone. I'm quite nervous at like intervals, so I tend not to eat too much because I don't want to get too distant from the game. But definitely, I'll take my pads off. I'll put my music on, and yeah, I'll make sure I'll relay sort of the tactics to the guys. But in terms of me mentally, yeah, even though I've stepped away from it, I'm not in that zone because I'm still at the crease. I don't want to just completely forget about it. I still want to stay in tune and think about who might be coming on after lunch. I might speak to the coaches as well, just a few things they may have picked up. So I stay fairly present, but obviously I take my pads off, I unwind a bit. But yeah, I'd say in the middle. I don't want to get too far detached from the game, but at the same time, that 40 minutes or 20 minutes, you really want to make the most of and recuperate and be fresh when you come out after the session.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. And I think what I'm picking up a lot is the balance between giving yourself those breaks and also then having the opportunity to still be there in terms of the game. So there's some things around the mental strategies to bat long, but also, as we've said, to bat under any of those circumstances. Our next topic here is overcoming adversity, and I must apologise for finding quite cynically 2 pictures of you getting cleaned up here. Not very nice, so I apologise for that.
That's good. I knew it was coming. Everything's good.
So, with this, with your experiences, what are your methods to overcome adversity, whether it be the end of an innings or something that's a little bit more long term?
No, it's a really good question, and that's probably the biggest challenge any sportsman will face, overcoming adversity, and not just sport but in life. But for me, it's always a work in progress. I don't know anyone who's perfect, and I'm certainly not. But I try and stay level-headed. I think I'm a guy who likes to think about the game and analyze what I've done wrong. But the older I've got, the more I just back my training and understand that mistakes are made. You're not going to be not out every game you play. Like, you're going to get out at some point. So yeah, especially when I have those bad days, I try not to take it too personally. Obviously, I'll go through what I may have done wrong, and sometimes I haven't done much wrong. It was just the bowler was better than me, or I was unlucky. But yeah, it's just making sure that, like I said previously, just staying level and not beating yourself up too much that you miss out on your next opportunity because you're worried about what just happened. But like I say, no one's perfect. I'm definitely in that category. And yeah, I think whenever you do well after overcoming adversity, it's always the best feeling, because you really know how it felt previously when you struggled or failed. Shouldn't even say failed, but when it didn't go to plan. But yeah, and that's in terms of when it's just happened or within the game. But without of the game, definitely I have my go-to people. So I'm very close to my parents and my girlfriend, and yeah, they're brilliant for me, always talking through things, whether it's good or bad. They'll always be on the phone. And yeah, they just sort of bring me, if I've done amazingly, they'll obviously be really happy, but they'll also understand that it's just a game. And when I do badly, same thing. I might think it's the worst thing that's happened because I've built it up, or it's a big game. But they'll let me know, again, same thing, that look, it's just a game. There's tomorrow. You've got another chance. And yeah, I think that's really key. Just for me, not getting too high when on the good days and not getting too low on the bad days, and just, yeah, trying to stay at that even keel, that definitely helps me. And I'll repeat again, the main thing for me is just not beating yourself up so that you miss out on the next opportunity when it could have been your day and you've sort of outthought yourself or given yourself some bad energy. So that's mainly my thoughts on that, and how I sort of, what helps me to overcome it.
Yeah. Now, the life of a batter is, like you've said there, it's never perfect. There's always a dismissal around the corner, or always something which can be seen as adversity. What do you feel that has been the biggest lesson in terms of how you deal with that? Has there been a particular point in your career where you started to think about these things a bit differently, or have you always been able to have that quite balanced, objective perspective on it?
Not at all. I think it's definitely gotten better with age, but yeah, I still think if I was to struggle going forwards, I'd like to think I'd have everything in place, and that's why these chats are brilliant. But yeah, you never know how the future will be, so it's just making sure that all these things are in place, and you control what I can. But yeah, I think when obviously I was younger, just playing youth cricket, it wasn't professional. Like, I was, obviously you'd succeed more than the people around you. Sort of the upbringing I had and how good I was at that age. But yeah, as I start to get into the men's team and into the Kent team, and yeah, obviously everyone's professional. Everyone's paid to be there. Obviously these days are a bit less, like you're not going to dominate. And for me, being a very good sort of junior cricketer, that was I wouldn't say challenge, but it was definitely noticeable that, yeah, it's not going to be that easy. So I need to, not saying it was easy as a kid, but I definitely have to find, the best thing I could do is to find a way how to deal with failure, or to deal with a perceived failure, should we say. Because no, at the end of the day, most batsmen, I think even the best in the world, are going to fail more than they succeed. So it's just about being realistic and making sure that, yeah, not just that you're ready for the next game and you don't put yourself down, but also understanding that it's, as much as you've done the training, that's all you can do. Train hard and stick to the processes, and the rest will take care of itself, whether it's good or bad. You can't do much more. So yeah, that's what I've found in my, I'm still quite young, but I've played a fair bit. That's what I've found in my career. And I've also can say that I don't think anyone will find, unless you don't care or you've lost the sort of vibe to play. I think even the Darren Stevenses of the world, 45-year-old legend that I think he still has days where he's disappointed or he's down. So no, it obviously it gets better with age, but I think when anyone's very competitive and they want the best for themselves, you're always going to have those bad days, but it's just making sure you know how to cope with them, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got there some elements of overcoming adversity, and what I'm looking for really in any conversation I ever have with a cricketer, whether it's someone who plays for fun or someone who plays for a living, is there's things in our sport which can teach us great skills, mental skills that can be used in cricket and elsewhere. There's also that recovering from setbacks element to it as well, but also there is, of course, the feature of it where, just like in any other walk of life, we are given opportunities to do things to maintain good mental health. Everyone has mental health, and everyone has their own strategies about how they look after it and make sure they're in the healthy, happy place. So for yourself, either with a cricketing hat on or just day-to-day living, what is it that you do to maintain good mental health so you can perform and live your life how you wish?
No, it's a good point. I think it's key for anyone, because that's where everything starts in the head. But no, for me personally, I've got my routine. So I'll ring my parents most mornings and set the day up like that. They wake up very early, so I know I can just give them a call. And even on a cricket day, or like now I'm in quarantine, I'll still give them a ring. That starts me off brilliantly, in a good mood. But also the things I do sort of out of cricket are massive for me. So not just keeping in contact with family, but I've got a few different hobbies. So I love property. I also love other sports as well, football, basketball. So I just follow those like a fan and just take myself out of the cricket side of things, which can really help, because when I go back to cricket, I'm very fresh. And like I say, everyone's different. Some people can really keep cricket sort of with them 24/7 and read their news, and that will give them a kick. But for me, I like to step back from it and speak to people who don't necessarily know about cricket too much as well, and just sort of live my life outside cricket. And that tends to give me, that tends to put me in a good headspace. And I feel like I've got a lot of energy going back to training or going to play games, just because my mind's fresh. And yeah, I'd say those are the main things which sort of keep me going strong from the cricket point of view. And then other than that, it's quite simple things. I'm looking into a few bits. I know my girlfriend likes to meditate as well, so she's been getting onto me with that, which I need to start. But I've just been abroad and all around the world in the last couple months. But no, she's brilliant for that as well. So no, I've got a lot of things in place which I like to do. Some of them not by design. It just naturally helps me, and others, yeah, definitely by design, to just put me in my best headspace coming back into competitive cricket.
What would you say is the role of the team or the squad in helping each other be able to maintain good mental health?
It's massive. I think, especially in professional sport, we're going to be with our teammates the most we'll see anyone. So it's obviously not everyone's going to get along, but from a professional point of view, and the Kent guys are brilliant at it, just picking each other up when you have bad days. And everyone can see, like in cricket, it's very obvious if you've had a good day or not, because the numbers don't tend to lie. But yeah, our team are brilliant at that. The coaches understand that. And yeah, it's obvious everyone wants to be treated differently, but for sure we've got a good environment there, and where people pick each other up when they have tougher days. And we're all in it together as well. I think with any sport or any level of sport, I think you're all on the field fighting for one goal or aiming to win for your team. So once you have that in common, I think you touched on it previously about the life lessons you learn. And definitely cricket teamwork and understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses is brilliant for a team sport, because yeah, you learn to work together, and some people pick up the slack in different areas. So no, it's very vital. It's extremely vital, especially in a sport like cricket, where your performance impacts how someone else might do that day. So yeah, I think it's key that a team has a good sort of good spirit, and they pick each other up and look out for each other as well.
Now, my final bit before I open it to questions, and if anyone does have a question, please put it either in the Q&A or the chat, and I'll pick it out from there. We've discussed quite a bit there on different strategies that are employed, and it's clear to see that you're someone who does consider this, who's got a plan, has routines and so on. So how easy is it as a professional player, particularly perhaps now with the movement that we have a lot more with, for example, you spending time in the T10 league and then coming back to preparing for a season with county cricket. How easy or difficult is it for someone to show their vulnerability, whether that be something they're worried about their game or elsewhere in their life?
It's a good question. I'm sure it's improving for sure. Yeah, it can be tough, I guess, going in and out of teams. because you might not know the players you're playing with as well. And yeah, it can be tough. I know about the stigma behind it, but I think it's improving a lot for the better. And it's not just about, might not just be about sort of someone might be struggling outside of the game. It might purely be things that they want to bring up about their own game in cricket themselves. And I think our new batting coach, Michael Yardy, is brilliant for that. He sort of strips it back, because at the end of the day, it's, especially as a batsman, it's just you out there, like you're making the decisions. So you need to make sure that whatever's making the decisions for you is working smoothly and is in a happy place. So no, I think it's getting a lot better in cricket. And yeah, like society, I'm sure it will keep improving as well. But it's definitely one of the better sports I've seen. Not that I've experienced too many else, but I can only speak good things from my experiences.
Yeah, okay. And that, in fact, has largely answered the first question that's come in about how the approach to mental health has changed throughout your career. I assume then that you've seen this improvement that has gone on from when you first started to where you are now.
Absolutely, yeah. So I started in 2011. Ages ago now. I feel old. Just 10 years ago. And yeah, like obviously I still remember it clearly, and it wasn't, I'd like to think it wasn't too dissimilar, but I can definitely see changes happening and people being understood more. And yeah, these certain, whether it's psychological things people might be going through, or whether it's technical, I feel people can talk about it a lot more and not have to sort of, as they say, like keep it, sort of put their head beneath the parapet. And no, I think that brings out the best in people, because when they can feel open to voice their concerns, or like if they're in a good state, it definitely is good for them as well, and not just not talking up, and that can be quite damaging, as we've seen. So I think it's definitely getting better, and I hope it continues to improve even more.
Well, that's good to hear, and it correlates with what some of the other guys in these sessions have been saying, both in their individual counties and the perception across the game. Question here from Jack: from a mental perspective, how do you adapt to batting in a different position? So opening to number 3, for example.
It's always quite tough. For me, I think once you get out to bat, you'll tend to find a way, and it's just making sure you're ready for it. You're not surprised. So say if you're normally an opener and you're coming into bat at number 4 or 5 and you start against spin, just don't be surprised about those things. Just prepare mentally. And obviously not everyone, especially in this COVID times, we can't all just go for a net in the local sports centre and just practice spin. But for me, definitely, because I've done a bit of both as well, mainly an opener, but I've batted in the middle. And the main difference for me has been sort of not starting when everyone else is already in the game and got on feel for the game. Whereas when I normally open, everyone's starting afresh. So I feel very comfortable because I know the bowler's just starting as well. But yeah, I think it's about mentally preparing yourself that you could come in at any stage, and not being surprised that if there's a spinner on first of all, or if you get a bounce at first ball, which you're less likely to get as an opener for sure.
Okay. Jamie says, what's the best advice you've ever been given, whether that's on the field or off?
It's a good question. Got to sift through a fair bit. I think of it from my dad. Like he's been a massive part of my sort of cricketing journey, having played himself. But yeah, from his saying to me is never give up. And there's been time, it comes back to that adversity point. I mean, there's been countless times in my career where I didn't know where the next run was coming from. and I was able to find a way, and then suddenly I have got 100, and it made the last 2 weeks of bad form or month of bad form feel like a distant memory. So that's always something that stuck with me. And yeah, for me, like never giving up. It doesn't mean obviously keep sort of trying something that's not working, but it just means always keep the faith. So I'd say that's the best piece of advice I've been given. But yeah, also just not to take things too seriously and to compartmentalize things. I've really started to learn getting older. And yeah, just making sure that you're in the moment with everything you're doing, and you're not taking sort of issues or problems from one place to another, and just trying to separate things definitely helps me from a mental point and psychological point of view, for sure. So I'd say they're my best sort of 2 pieces of advice I've been given or learned, but still always learning like everyone.
Yeah, fantastic. Final one that I've got left here, although there is still time if people wish to put something else up there, is you mentioned with the trusting the process when you're not getting runs and you've perhaps are out of form. What happens when, if this does happen, if you then start to feel the process is wrong? How do you deal with that, and perhaps thinking that everything that you're falling back on in times of bad form maybe isn't the right thing to get you out of the other end?
Yeah, that I'm sure. No, it definitely happens. And yeah, this happened a fair bit to me, and what I tend to do is go to the people I trust the most. And then, yeah, I'll go back to square one in a way and be like, let's break it down. Like whatever I'm doing isn't quite working at the minute. So yeah, I try and go back to square one and just start from the basics really. But that's from a technical point of view. From a mental and psychological perspective, definitely, I'll go back to that compartmentalizing things. I think, yeah, when you're struggling, you really, especially me, like I don't really want to be watching too much cricket, because I grew up watching cricket. It was my first love and a hobby growing up. But yeah, when you're struggling, it can be painful at times watching other games of sport like on your TV. So yeah, if I'm really struggling from that point of view, I'll just sort of separate myself from the game while I'm away from it. If I'm not working actively to improve myself, like having conversations, just so I can stay fresh and have a laugh like elsewhere. And like I say, that tends to give me more energy and focus coming back to it when I do come to train or play. So those are my tips, like from a technical and then a mental perspective.
Okay, now this will be our last question, which I think is a really good one to round things off. After a big win or a high point in the game, how do you effectively decompress and return to normal?
What, in terms of like after the game or then?
Yeah, I think a bit of both. After the game, or if there's a moment in a game that's a particular high.
I tend to, yeah, if it's during a game, I'd like to think I'm quite good at staying in the moment. Yeah, if I've got to 100, I like to think I'm quite focused coming back after. I don't think I'm gonna sort of get at next ball because I lost focus or I was too stuck in the moment of sort of success. But yeah, definitely if I've had like a brilliant game, and I'm finished, I'm going home, like I'll definitely, similar again, like I say, when I'm on a low point, I'll try and get away from it. And when I'm on a high point, I'll also try and separate myself from it. And obviously I'm still going to enjoy it. And I'm extremely happy because I've worked for it. So no, I'm not for 1 minute saying I don't enjoy it or lap it up at times. But yeah, when it's all said and done, I try to leave it in the past, from a purely professional point of view, just so I'm going back to training fully focused and doing what I have to do. And yeah, just taking the emotion out of it, especially when I'm back at training, because I need to prepare for that next game. So that's my bit on that.
Yeah, great. Well, that brings us to a close, and I think all that's been covered here for anyone watching and listening, it gives some really brilliant insights into not only how you think, Daniel, but also how actually some of these approaches can be used for our cricket. If there's anyone out there wanting to score more runs, enjoy their game more, but also these things all transfer into other areas of our lives. And I think that thing you said at the end about how if things aren't going so well as when things are going well, taking some time away from what that is helps to recalibrate and balance. So I'm thinking about that already as a concept. So thanks very much for your time. Look forward to hopefully the fans being back in the stadiums this summer and seeing you do your thing then. So cheers, Daniel. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Happy to be on. Cheers. Take care.